Hey everyone, welcome into another edition of First and North. I am Tina Wynn, and joining me this week on the show, the voice of the Lions, Dan Miller, from Fox Milwaukee, Tim Van Voren, and from Fox Minneapolis, Ahmad Hicks. Fellas, Super Bowl 60 is set in Santa Clara. The top seed in the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks, will take on Drake May and the Patriots. It's a rematch from 11 years ago. Super Bowl 59, where Malcolm Butler picked off Russell Wilson at the 1-yard line. Before I get to that, though, guys, the joke has always been the NFL, this league, is somehow, some way scripted. A little hard to argue against that since the league shared this on September 4th. As you see here, yeah. If we zoom in all the way up front, what do you see? Guys, we see Sam Darnold and Drake May. Coincidence? I mean, I think not. Tim, I'll start with you. What was your initial reaction when you saw this matchup?
Well, first of all, Super Bowl 60 was Saturday night, or Sunday night, I guess I'd say, in Seattle. That was the game that mattered. So this one, I guess the script is in place there if you believe in that stuff, Tina. I'm not big on that scripting stuff. I think you play the games, but hey, we're all talking about it, so there's something.
Hey, the Seahawks entered week 1 of the season with 60-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. Longer odds than every NFC West team, including the Cardinals. The Patriots had 80-1 odds. We'll see if Seattle can avenge their Super Bowl 49 loss there. Ahmad, the last Vikings QB and offensive coordinator, Sam Darnold and Clint Kubiak, are headed to the Super Bowl. How are Vikings fans taking this, seeing their former QB, Sam Darnold, getting ready to play in the Super Bowl here?
Oh, the narratives are already being created, Tina. Everyone around town's like, what if we would have just kept Sam Darnold? If we would have kept Sam Darnold, we would be right there. It's like, yeah, maybe, sort of, but who knows what that offensive line would have been like. The running game, the defense, not as good as Seattle, but they are pretty good. But, you know, everyone in Minnesota loves to harp on something when the season ends and blames it on another reason. So this is just another, you know, chapter to the saga that they have here in Minnesota for sports and the Minnesota Vikings, that is.
Let's not forget, though, this has no doubt been a very long and windy road here for Sam Darnold, who was in the same draft class back in 2018 as who? Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Josh Rosen, Mason Rudolph. Darnold was taken 3rd overall there to what team? The Jets. And since then, he's played for the Panthers, the 49ers, and, of course, the Vikings last year. And now with the Seahawks, Ahmad, do you believe it was a mistake here to let him go?
I mean, that's the big storyline for us here in Minnesota right now. Everyone can make a case why it was a mistake to let him go, and everyone else can make another, you know, case for why they should have let him go, because then they would have just kind of hamstrung their team and their roster and not really been able to upgrade at any other position. So, I mean, we can go back and forth on this situation, but I think the moral of the story is Sam Darnold revived his career here, and he went out and just continued where he picked up where he left off last year. Had 2 rough games against 2 opponents, should I say, the Lions and the Rams, and he kind of avenged, you know, those tough games against the Rams this season. So if he goes out there and wins the Super Bowl, everyone in Minnesota will tell you they should have kept Sam Darnold. If he goes out there and loses and doesn't have a spectacular performance, they'll say, okay, maybe that's why we didn't re-sign him. So you can look at it both ways here.
Well, speaking of another quarterback who is performing well this season, Dan, on the other side of the coin, the Rams lost, and questions are starting to rise if Matthew Stafford should retire. He's played at an MVP level all season long. Do you think he has another season left in him?
I think he does. I think should comes down to whether or not Matthew Stafford wants to continue to play, and that's going to bring into consideration the direction of the Rams, what they plan on doing, how they plan on facilitating that roster going forward. But Matthew showed that he can surely play. And you could see that he had a good game against Seattle. They just didn't find a way to get it done, and their defense really let them down in that game. And a special teams mistake obviously set the Seahawks up as well. So, look, I think Matthew, knowing him from his years here, will probably take a little bit of time to think about it. I don't know if he's got his mind made up yet, but I'm not going to be surprised either way. He has played through a lot of injuries. He has put his body through a lot of trauma and certainly feels it and will feel it going forward for the rest of his life. So the question is that it for Matthew Stafford on the field, and is he ready to go jump into a cushy TV job somewhere? Or does he feel like there is still a chance that this team can come back, finish the job that they started this year, win another Super Bowl, and get that done? So I think all those things go into his thinking and what he does. Like I said, guys, I'm 50-50 on what he does going forward.
Well, time will tell if Matthew Stafford will be returning for next season. Guys, let's dive into award season now. The NFL released the finalists for the 2025 season. Let's start with AP Coach of the Year, Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Mike McDonald, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike Vrabel. They narrowed it down to 5, but the hard part now is narrowing it down to 1. You can certainly make a case for all of these guys. If you ask me, my choice for Coach of the Year, Bears head coach Ben Johnson, because no one, absolutely no one had the Bears clinching the NFC North and posting their first winning season since 2018. The Bears went from winning 5 games last year with Matt Eberflus to 11 wins, double-digit wins this year. And look, they didn't just make the playoffs. They were the number 2 seed in the NFC, made it all the way to the divisional round, and on the way picked up their first postseason win in 15 years. That's been a long time. He's taking this team from worst to first. The turnaround has been remarkable. Teams will now be afraid to face Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and this Bears team moving forward. Tim, who you got as your vote?
I'm with you, Tina, to be honest with you. And I know Packer fans would say, oh, that's tough to swallow. But they think you have to look at the stamp that Ben Johnson has put on that team in Chicago, the way they played as the season went along, the confidence they had at the end of the year. They very easily could have won the last playoff game that they didn't win and kept going. So I definitely think Ben Johnson, and that's a nice pack of coaches there. I think the improvement in Jacksonville, the improvement in New England, you have to credit the coaches in all those situations. But I would go for Ben Johnson this year, too. And I'm guessing that he's going to lead with his chin as he goes forward with that franchise.
Dan, who you got?
I'm going Mike Vrabel. I mean,
Okay.
that team is 4-13 in each of the last 2 years. And for him to come in there, and yeah, you got Drake May, and that's a huge step. But that turnaround for New England, after what they had been through, to come back, look, legendarily, it is a easy schedule that they went through. It is one of the easier schedules we've seen in years, but to pull that thing together, to keep them together, to get them through the playoffs, and to get to a Super Bowl, and obviously those votes go in before the postseason, I would probably end up going with Mike Vrabel in there. Just to that turnaround, to me, wasn't just one 4-13 season. It was 2 4-13 seasons, and they were miserable, but he gave them direction and obviously has them now on the brink of a championship.
All right, Ahmad, we've got 2 votes here for Ben Johnson, 1 for Mike Vrabel. Who are you going with?
I'm going to have to go Ben Johnson as well. Nothing short of remarkable what Mike Vrabel was able to do with that Patriots organization and turn them around, like Dan said, after 2 4-13 seasons. But I just think what Ben Johnson was able to do with this franchise, the Chicago Bears, everyone had them picked to finish last in the division this year. And then what they were able to do in the fourth quarter of games and come from behind, I mean, that says a lot about their quarterback, his development throughout the year, and what Johnson was able to do for this city and for this team. So I'm going to have to go with Johnson. I think he had the popularity vote towards the end of the season.
Ahmad, I'll keep it here with you because Brian Flores was named a finalist for AP Assistant Coach of the Year. His defense finished 3rd in the NFL in total defense. The Vikings awarded him with a contract extension to remain as the defensive coordinator, but he can still leave if offered a head coaching job. Is he a lock to stay in Minnesota?
Yeah, I think he's a lock. I've said it here before on this show. I just think while he's actively suing the National Football League for racial discrimination, I think we all know these owners collude with one another. They all make sure they're in the same lockstep with one another in the same category and make sure they're not offending another owner around the National Football League. So while I think he's more than deserving for a second opportunity to become a head coach, I just don't think that's going to happen with this ongoing lawsuit against the NFL. But I think people around here in Minnesota are elated to have him around, because I think we all know with the offensive situation we have with J.J. McCarthy and crew, you want to have some type of thing you can lean on, whether that's special teams or defense. And defense has been that the last couple of years under Flores. So while we do want to see him get a head coaching job eventually, we're happy to keep him here in Minnesota for sure.
Tim, Micah Parsons was named a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. If he was healthy, would he have had your vote?
Myles Garrett, obviously, with the huge sack numbers there. Micah Parsons proved that he was arguably the most valuable player in some people's eyes, because once he dropped off, the Packers absolutely went off the cliff without him. I think he would have had a shot at it. The pure numbers would indicate that it would be hard to top Myles Garrett. But Micah Parsons was everything the Packers wanted him to be and more. and a leader, and he's saying all the right things going forward. The Packers are ecstatic with that acquisition. The injury curtailed the season to the point where he's not in legitimate contention for this award. Otherwise, I think he would have given Garrett a run, although the sack numbers just would have been tough to overcome in my mind.
Yeah, no doubt that Green Bay defense certainly missed Micah Parsons there in 14 games, led the Packers with 12.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, and 26 quarterback hits before he tore his ACL in Week 15. Dan, Aiden Hutchinson isn't just on that list as well, but he is also in the running for Comeback Player of the Year, which he has to be the front runner for, right?
Yeah, I think he's certainly going to be up there with 14.5 sacks, but I have a feeling this has historically been an award recently which has gone to quarterbacks. I don't think Dak Prescott's going to win it. Trevor Lawrence, I don't think, is going to win it. If I had to say I think it's going to be somebody, I think it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. I think the numbers that he put up playing in all of San Francisco's games, career high in touches, which is just insane for a running back his age with all the mileage that he has on it. He was just amazing this year. And look, in all these categories, you can argue for everybody that's up there on that screen because they are all deserving. I mean, Myles Garrett is on another planet when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year. But these guys all have great stories. Aiden obviously is coming off a very serious leg injury, and to come back with 14.5 sacks deserves all the credit in the world. But I just think the numbers that McCaffrey put up and the electricity he injected into that San Francisco offense when they were really hurting this year and they needed guys like him to step up, I have a feeling he's going to be your winner.
Yeah, everyone's certainly deserving here. And as you mentioned, Aiden Hutchinson, career best season, 14.5 sacks, led the NFL with 100 pressures. All right, guys, we need to take our first break here because coming up next, we dive into all the coaching hires and changes around the division. Stay with us here on First and North. Welcome back to First and North. I'm Tina Nguyen at our Fox 32 studios in Chicago, joined by Dan Miller in Detroit, Tim Van Vooren in Milwaukee, and Ahmad Hicks in Minneapolis. Dan, Lions officially announced the hiring of Drew Petzing as their offensive coordinator, not the big name that fans in Detroit may have wanted. And All-Pro wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown has a message to Lions fans who are doubting this hire. Take a listen.
Bro, I see crazy Lions fans talking crazy like, oh, why would we do this? Like, bro, do you guys, like, have no trust in Dan? Like, in the Lions? Like, you think they would just hire a random dude? Like, be for real. Like, you think they don't know what they're doing? They don't do their research. They don't interview. Like, most of you guys don't know really much about anything, about any ball.
Wow. Wow.
And you're tweeting about a coach that was hired that you guys don't like because of XYZ. Like, it's just funny to me to see. Don't get me wrong, I love all Lions fans, but they are so quick to make, judgments about who we hired, who we did this. Like, bro, just relax, calm down. Like, let the whole thing play out.
All right, that right there is a message to the fans. The beauty of all this, guys, is players now have their own platform to share their opinions too, so we know what they're thinking. Dan, I don't know if you knew this, but Petzing was one of Ben Johnson's groomsmen in his wedding. I believe he was the best man there. I heard Chris Long say this hire is the ultimate revenge on Ben Johnson. What do you think?
Well, I think they like the fact that maybe there's some similarities between him and Ben Johnson, but Ben Johnson has cut his teeth and kind of stands alone now among some offensive coordinators who've gone on to be head coaches, and as we talked about, very successful in doing that. But listen, the Petzing thing, it's a fan's reaction when it's not one of the big names that's out there, and you hear somebody coming from Arizona, which has been not a great place for football for a while now. It's kind of like, what is that? But I do believe as more people looked a little bit deeper in the numbers, at the way that he's run his offense, at the numbers that he's put up, at the way that he has a run game working in Arizona, and the way he worked through injuries and still had production, I do think that initial wave of what the heck is going on here has kind of turned into, all right, I see what Dan Campbell's thinking here. So I think initially is what Amon-Ra was reacting to. I think since then a lot of people have come around to it. But I do think that's a byproduct that we see in a lot of these searches when it's not maybe the biggest name that you were hoping for, that there is some disappointment. But I think given time, there was also a little bit of introspection there, and people came back and said, you know what, maybe not so bad.
Dan, I'll keep it here with you. Chicago native Mike Kafka is set to join the Lions staff as well. He's certainly impressed in Week 12 of the season. What more can you tell us about him?
Another set of eyes, and we don't know exactly how this is going to work. I think a lot of us were surprised that in addition to Petzing, that Kafka was somebody that was brought in as well. Look, 5 years under Andy Reid, has been with Brian Daboll, who is a good friend of Dan Campbell in the coaching circuit in New York. Came into Ford Field and put up over 500 yards with Jameis Winston at quarterback against the Lions. So they saw all they needed to see of him on that day. They could not stop him. They could not stop his offense. They couldn't stop Winston that day. So that was a great thing to put on his resume that happened right in front of the Lions. So, look, passing game is where he seems to excel, and running game is where Petzing seems to excel. So you bring these things together, and you can see what Dan Campbell is thinking there, how this all works out, and what the delineation is in terms of duties. That's what I think we're all wondering at this point.
Well, here in Chicago, for the Bears, no changes at offensive coordinator next season right now. Declan Doyle has officially withdrawn his name for consideration with the Eagles, but the Ravens requested an interview for their offensive coordinator opening. The 29-year-old is highly thought of throughout the NFL. Ben Johnson described him as, quote, extremely detailed-oriented and organized. Doyle spent 4 seasons with the Saints as an offensive assistant under Sean Payton, followed him to Denver for 2 seasons, was the Titans coach there. Just wrapped up his first season as an OC here in Chicago. Did not call plays this past season. Ben Johnson here was the main play caller, but assisted in developing the game plan week by week. I think this is a good move for him right now. Why? Because, guys, he's still a young coach. It gives the Bears offense and Caleb Williams stability heading into another year. Instead of him jumping too fast, he can continue to grow and learn from Ben Johnson, ultimately setting himself for something bigger and better down the road. Tim, up in Green Bay, Packers named former Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon as their DC. No secret that he struggled in Arizona there with the Cardinals. How much of this hire is banking on what he did in Philadelphia?
A lot of it. And I think the experience of being a head coach will be a benefit. I know Matt LaFleur liked that Jeff Hafley, the previous defensive coordinator, had been a head coach, albeit at the college level, but had the idea of, hey, this is where the buck stops. This is the way I have to have a larger overview of what's going on with my unit or with my team. Jonathan Gannon obviously didn't win a lot of games in Arizona as the head coach, but he did get that experience. He had some highs and lows. Let's face it, some of his social media stuff, basically flopped. He had the issue on the sidelines, unhappiness with the player. Those are all things he's had to overcome. I get the sense Jonathan Gannon might be happy to just let me coordinate a defense. The Packers have Micah Parsons and other individual talented defensive players, and I think that's what Mike LaFleur is looking for, and they go out and get Jonathan Gannon. I think it's probably going to turn out to be a positive hire all the way around. It is remarkable to me, though. Declan Doyle's 29 years old. When he came into the world, fans couldn't even name position coaches on these various teams. Nowadays, it's everybody has opinions about what the assistant special teams coach ought to be doing. It's just been a wild climb in NFL attention.
Tim, keep it here with you because Jeff Hafley now in Miami, and I'm sure he's enjoying more sunshine than all of us are getting right now. Has he plucked anyone from Green Bay to follow him?
Yeah, he's going to take a couple of defensive coaches with him. One guy, Sean Dugan, who he's known for a long time. Ryan Downer, the safeties coach in Green Bay, is going to go down there as well. Ryan's always impressed me. He's been through a couple of defensive staffs here in Green Bay. I think he's a rising coach in the NFL. So Jeff Hafley kind of knew what he was paying attention. He was coaching, obviously, but he was paying attention to his surroundings in Green Bay. They're taking a strength and conditioning coach with them. So John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley certainly knew who they could possibly deal with. And I know that Hafley and Matt LaFleur had to have conversations like, well, I can't raid your staff. How are we going to work all this out? And by the way, Tina, Dolphins at Green Bay next season.
Oh, there we go. Circle that one. All right. Ahmad, DB's coach and pass game coordinator Durante Jones has found a new home with the Commanders as their new defensive coordinator. How big of a loss is this for the Vikings?
Well, I'm sure Vikings fans are happy to see Durante Jones go there instead of Brian Flores, as he did interview for that D.C. job. But I don't think it'll be a huge loss because Brian Flores has his hands all over this defense and what they're able to do. But I think it will be one of those like cultural losses, like around the locker room. Durante Jones was beloved by his guys that he coached and around the guys that, didn't play for him necessarily, but will be around him. I've heard nothing but good things about him and what he was able to do under Brian Flores here and all the other coaches. So I think it's a big loss for this team, just as in regards to the vibes around the locker room and in the coaches' offices and things like that. But as long as they have Brian Flores, I have no doubt whoever they bring in to coach the defensive backs, they'll be up to speed in no time here.
Well, fellas, back to the Bears real quick because assistant GM Ian Cunningham will do a second in-person interview for the Atlanta Falcons GM job. Cunningham has been a candidate for a GM gig over the last couple seasons. He was a finalist for the Falcons president of football position, which ultimately went to Matt Ryan. But interesting to note, if he leaves, the Bears will not receive any draft picks since Matt Ryan is deemed to be the primary football executive for the Falcons. Tim, back to you. Thoughts on a potential Green Bay reunion in Pittsburgh with Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers?
I would be surprised if it didn't happen, to be honest with you. Aaron Rodgers played well enough that I think he would entertain coming back, and he's really patched up his relationship with Mike McCarthy over the years. I know Mike was just thrilled to be back into NFL coaching this year and to be in his hometown of Pittsburgh. He was emotional at his introductory press conference. I could see some Steeler fans getting emotional just hearing that. So I could see a reunion heading into this season of those two guys who had their greatest professional accomplishments together as Green Bay Packers.
First thing I thought of when I saw that Mike McCarthy was getting hired there with the Steelers. Dan, after the Week 18 game in Chicago, Dan Skipper was emotional, saying that might have been his last one. Turns out it was. He announced his retirement last week. He embodied what it meant to be a Lion, didn't he?
He embodies, I think, what it means to be a football player. And not everybody's a star. Not everybody hits free agency and gets 50, 60, 70, 80, $100 million. Some guys just fight to find a spot. And then they find a spot and become important in a city. And that city takes to them like they did to Dan Skipper. Dan Skipper was never going to be a star in this league, but you know what? He was a really important member of this team after he fought just to find a space and bounced around and ultimately locked up a spot on the roster. Whatever they needed, whether it was guard or it was tackle or it was coming in as the sixth offensive lineman, he was going to do it. And Dan Skipper, I think, is the kind of guy that coaches have to have, because you need some guys that aren't breaking the bank, and you need some guys that have versatility that that they can cover anything you need. That was Dan Skipper. He's going to be missed. That's a guy that people will talk about fixing the center position and fixing the left tackle position. That backup tackle position that Dan Skipper handled for a number of years, that's another hole that this team has to fill.
What a journey and career for Dan Skipper. Guys, we need to take our final time out here. NFL Pro Bowl is next week. More additions were made to the roster, including one that shocked the NFL world. We discuss next on First and North. Stay with us. Back here on First and North, Tina, Dan, Tim, and Ahmad with you. Pro Bowl games start a week from today, and a few alternates were named. That included Green Bay's Keyshawn Nixon being named to his first Pro Bowl. And here in Chicago, Nashawn Wright wasn't named a starter, but finally got the nod he deserves. He's one of 4 Bears players to be named to the Pro Bowl. Guys, here's one that we call mind-boggling. Shocked not only me, but the NFL world. Shedeur Sanders being added to the Pro Bowl roster. Dan, I'll start with you. What do you make of this?
I make that there weren't enough guys available. And you have to keep going down the list and say, do you want to play? Nope, injured. Do you want to play? Nope, just don't want to go. And you keep going. And finally somebody's going to say yes, and it was Shedeur Sanders. And look, I don't want to cast anything on him as to where his career is going to go. That book is still being written. Surely is not a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. But that just tells you where this thing is at right now, and how they got to him ultimately is there's just not enough guys.
Tim, I believe he was a 5th-round pick, and now he got his first Pro Bowl nod. Make this make sense to us here.
Well, I don't know about you guys, Tina. My anticipation for the Pro Bowl is kind of like Shedeur Sanders on draft weekend. Just drop, drop, drop year after year after year. It's the obligatory 20 seconds of highlights on your Sunday night when you're anchoring that night. It's just declined so much that it's not much of an event. The prestige is being named a Pro Bowler, and now Shedeur Sanders can say he's that.
Ahmad, if players have no interest in doing it, why do they significantly impact contracts and negotiations?
You know, that's $1 million question, Tina. I don't know why it's impacting their contracts because let's be real, who's watching the Pro Bowl? No one wants to see these guys go play flag football or 7-on-7 or these little drills that they go through. Like, I could care less. I do not look forward to all Pro Bowl weekend for the NFL anymore. It lost my interest maybe back when Sean Taylor hit the punter. That's when it was real for me.
Guys, one thing's for sure, though. He now joins an elite club of rookies to make the Pro Bowl. Everyone, great show as always. For Dan, Tim, and Ahmad, I am Tina Nguyen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week here on First and North.